Hello, hello, and welcome to the Weeder Life podcast. I'm your host, Erica Weederlight, and I am the CEO and founder of Weederlight. I help humans who feel inadequate, broken, self-conscious, and shamed around their sexuality to reclaim their aliveness, their power, and to have a renewed relationship to pleasure while preparing themselves to feel hella confident to date others and themselves. AKA, I'm guiding people to live their #best lives. I have to give you a fair warning. I do unfortunately swear like a drunken sailor, so if you do have little ones by you, just be sure to pop in some earbuds. All right, friends, let's buckle up and let's rock it to this week's episode. Oh my gosh, I am personally jazzed, personally psyched for this amazing guest that we have today. She is fabulous. She is a wealth of knowledge. I think she's going to blow a lot of people's minds in the best way possible. So let me tell you a little bit about my friend, Gayle. So Gayle Lynn is an amazing relationship coach, and she specializes in non-traditional relationships. And through her wealth of knowledge and experience, she has learned how messy relationships can be when someone is expressing their sexual desires. And so what she helps us do is she helps us navigate family, cultural beliefs, communication pitfalls, processing emotions, and so much more. And her desire is that her clients will be able to evolve their relationships into what they desire and achieve. And she really is all about inner peace. And something I love about her, and we're going to talk about this further, is she's so non-judgmental. She so holds space for whatever the relationship is meant to be. If it's meant to be non-monogamous, if it's meant to be monogamous, she's open, and she's a great, phenomenal container holder and setter and cheerleader. So I could talk more and more about her credentials and all that, but F it. Let's just introduce this amazing guest. Hi.
Hi. Thank you, Erica. I'm so excited to be here today. I am really looking forward to this fun conversation we're going to have.
Yeah, I am so excited for this conversation, and I'm so grateful that your work exists because it's so needed. And I know we're going to get into the nitty-gritty, but so many people, I think they're going to need this conversation for so many different reasons. I personally can't wait to extract some things for myself, like jealousy, but we'll get there. We'll get there later in the conversation. Yeah, I'm like, all right, there's some things we have to do before. But before we do, this is such a bomb of a way to go in, but can you tell us how you landed here? What was your story that got you to teach and to hold people through their relationships?
Well, for me, it was my own personal experience. And so there was a lot going on in my life. My husband and I had known each other for 30 years, been married for several years. And when we were going through, the normal stuff in a marriage of, things are kind of blah, blah. And, I'm taking care of kids and businesses because we had businesses together. And so life in the bedroom was not happening a whole lot. And so he actually came to me, and it took him a lot of guts to do this and not to go behind my back. But he actually came to me and said, I really have this desire to have sex with somebody else. Mm. And I can tell you what, it rocked my world.
Yeah, for sure.
I literally cried in the closet. I went to my bedroom, sat in my closet, buried myself in my clothes, and cried and screamed. Because what did it do? It hit so many self-worth issues, belief systems, we're supposed to be, to become one and married forever. And that's just the way it's supposed to be. And, that's what was ingrained with the church. That was what was our parents had always been together. Neither of us had divorced parents. So, again, just that innate expectation that monogamy is what it's supposed to be. And so all of these things just started hitting me at once. And I couldn't decipher between what was what, where my self-worth was at, why are you asking? Am I not enough? all these different things were going through my mind, which is why it sent me crying in the closet, because I didn't know how to handle all of these emotions that were surfacing within me, and for him, he had never been with another woman. I dated when I was, before high school, but he was always in the church. And then I started to go to church with him. And so, the expectation was that, you don't have sex until you're married. And I mean, mind you, that didn't happen with us. We did end up having sex before we were married. And that was a whole show in itself, because then we had to deal with the shame and the guilt from the church and the family. So there was a lot that was kind of wrapped into this time. And, we had the time that we were monogamous and doing all this, it was great. We had children, buying houses and the white picket fences, literally white picket fences. All of it seemed to be like the total dream ideal of any relationship that you are portrayed by society. And so when this happened, it took a lot of processing for me and for him, because he's trying to, really put forth authentically his desires. And he's also freaking out because of the belief systems and not knowing how to handle this and not knowing what to do with it and where to go with it. And so, the first thing we did was we really got in touch with our own intimacy and started to really reconnect together. And we did that through some orgasmic meditation, bringing out the berries and the whipped cream and the role play and, doing all those things just so we could reconnect more in the bedroom. However, the desire never went away.
Yeah.
So, I did my best. I was like, I can just be good enough. I can just be good enough. Right.
Yeah.
And that's where we all get kind of stuck is trying to be everything sometimes for one person. And it's not always a realistic expectation. I mean, even if we're not talking about sex, how many times in a marriage do you have one partner that has a girlfriend that maybe they go and do things with, the husband doesn't want to do with, or, different friends and things like that. So, people are out there because we can't just be everything to each other all the time. So, so when he said it a second time, we had a nice little chat, and I really, at this time, I had quite a bit of time to really kind of process it. And so when he came to me the next time, I was like, okay, well, let's figure it out. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to navigate this area. And so we actually chose to do some sacred sexuality training, which was probably the most valuable thing that we had ever done, because it not only helped, it helped on the self-development level in a big way, but also, I mean, we had the best sex education of our life. How many people, especially older people, their parents didn't talk about it. They didn't talk about all the protection and just anything. It was just like, you go figure it out on your own.
Yeah.
And so here we are, older, having education, but also we were taught about the different styles of relationships that could happen, an open relationship and polyamorous relationship, even talking about monogamy, and all of these can be a very sacred path. It's just the one that you choose to be in, choosing it.
Yes.
And that's the important part.
Yes. Yes. That is, I have to say, there's so much that I want to that's so gorgeous. And thank you for sharing with us. There's so many fucking amazing things I want to pull from that. And I think the first one, because that's the last thing we just talked about, was I've seen this somewhere in your work, and I was like, yes. And I think because we've talked about this before, I love how you talk about making a choice. There's meaning, it doesn't have to be right or wrong, and it doesn't have to be forever, but I think what I love about your work is consciousness about whatever avenue. And it doesn't matter you're not pushing anyone in one direction. You're like, hey, if this is your avenue, God bless. I support you. Let's create consciousness. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah. No, absolutely. That is so important. It's so important for two people to really choose what they desire in the relationship. And that's where sometimes I have to work with, getting past the cultural beliefs and the family beliefs to say, okay, what do you guys really want? And if they do want monogamy, like I said, that's a sacred path.
Absolutely.
But let's choose.
Yes.
Not stay on the fence, one partner in, one partner not, one partner feeling that they're forced to do it because they're afraid of like their safety, their security, so it's a matter of really being rock solid too, and really choosing together.
Yes.
And not out of like a codependency, all that, or self-worth issues or anything like that. So really getting solid and finding out who you are and what your desires are, because when you can know what your desires are, then you can choose consciously.
Ooh, okay, I wasn't expecting to ask this, but like, I'm like, let's just go here. Like, I'm sure like your life blew up we've talked about like the self-worth and like I'm sure that was like a time of like, whoa, mirror dealing with my stuff. We'll get to that in a second. But like, I am sure that because you were faced with desires, it like blew up your life with other desires. Like so often I talk to clients about like, what do you desire? And they're like, I have no fucking idea. Like, I don't know what I even want to eat for lunch. I have no idea where I want to go on vacation. So like, you know what I mean? So it's all cohesive. Can you talk to us about like how that conversation, like how your relationship to desire changed and like what it looks like now and how you play with it and all those good things?
So you're right, 100%. People a lot of times do not know what they really desire or want. And I mean, that was a breakthrough for me, is I had to figure out, is this something that I want? And that's what was beautiful too about the sacred sexuality place, is it actually gave us this chance to play within that container, to like actually interact with other people.
Yeah.
Right. And be with other people, and we're in a room, we see each other across the room. So of course all kinds of stuff is going to come up, feelings are going to come up and all this stuff. But what it did is it also started to allow me to see, okay, do I desire this? Do I want this? And sometimes with our clients, like literally we have to go on an I want rant, right? Where you
Yes.
just sit down and you start saying, I want this, I want that, I want this, because we do want things. It's just sometimes we're afraid to actually say what we want.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah. And so for me, through this, my desires started to change. And I actually really embraced going into this, because after the sacred sexuality, we did decide to do an open marriage and start seeing other people. And so, and desires change. They change through times. Some people might open their marriage for a while and then decide to go back to monogamy because they have other things going on in their life. Again, it's all good. It's just choosing.
Yes, that's so helpful. And I love what you said about that's like a perfect like little homework that we could take away from you, like the just like sitting there, because so often people are like, I have no idea what the fuck I want. And I love what you were suggesting, like what would it be like just to sit there for putting on a timer for 3 minutes and just rattle things off? Like that is such a genius exercise that we can like start practicing ASAP. Love that.
Yeah. I mean, I would even do it in my journal, and
Yes.
10 things that I want today.
Yes.
And it
Love
doesn't
that.
mean you're going to get them, but
Right.
just being able to speak what you want. And
Yes.
like you said, even setting a timer and speaking it out loud is a huge thing too, because that really brings a lot of different power to it, or even writing them down and then repeating them. And
Yes.
it starts to form. It starts to form where you can see, oh, I do have desires.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so helpful. Thank you. That's really good. We're going to get to jealousy in a second, I'm sure, because I'm sure people are like, oh my gosh. But can you talk to us like how you worked with, unpacked like some of the self love, worthiness, trigger, like those things were just so in your face. Like, how the hell did you unpack those?
Oh man, it's layers, right?
Yeah,
All these
totally.
things are layers. They don't always happen all at once. And that's why if this is something that anybody's considering, my first word of advice is take your time.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there is nothing to rush into here. It creates some beauty out of it. And for me, it was, some of the sacred sexuality training, some of the stuff in there actually helped to move the needle on the self-worth. And, because self-worth is going to come up, it comes up through our life. So it's a matter of, okay, one layer, and then it might come up again down the road. And that's all okay. It's all good. Um, the communication aspect, we used to go in communication circles like crazy. So learning how to effectively communicate and hear somebody's needs and feelings, so important. And that was, I felt like I had a part-time job. Some days we would talk about it for 4 hours.
Wow.
And I'm like,
Wow.
okay, we've got to stop this. We've got to find better ways to navigate this.
Yes.
You know? So it was definitely a process. And I bet it was over a year before we really embraced fully into opening it up, kind of
Mm.
dipping our toes here and there, finding out, do the boundaries that we set, or I call them pillars of agreements, where, you kind of line out what feels good for both of you guys, like how long you're going to see somebody, or, protection for sex, and, just kind of tackling all the issues that come with, starting to have sex with somebody else, outside of your main partnership. And so as you start doing all these things, more stuff is going to come up. And one of the biggest ones is, you're right, jealousy is going to come up.
Yeah.
And, to me, what I would challenge you, jealousy isn't about the sex, it's about the self.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So I just want everybody to really sink that one in. Jealousy is not about the sex, it's about the self. One of the beauty ways of this path of, opening your relationship, getting into ethical non-monogamy or polyamory or even swinging, okay, any of those pathways, it is definitely going to call for a lot of more communication.
Mm.
Because when you communicate, a lot of times the jealousy is going to be diffused.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
It's when the wandering mind is like, oh, this was his pattern. He always did this, and this, and now he's out of his pattern. Something must be happening. I must track it
Yes.
down. Whereas if there was just a little piece of communication there, that jealousy wouldn't have even popped in.
Mm.
So communication is key to jealousy, but also having really consciously choosing jealousy for truth.
Mm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
then it calls for another layer, and all these other layers that we talk about to start being addressed. So the first, it's that whole onion thing. Like, we're going to keep peeling until we can get to the core where the freedom is really at. And so, you start peeling back the different belief systems, guilt and shame, envy, all these different things that are really other disguises for jealousy. And when you will take it within yourself, you'll come to find out what's really going on with you. So it becomes a very conscious way to start relating with each other, where if you have the honesty and the authenticity and the vulnerability to really go into those spaces and discuss it, that's where the jealousy is going to get more and more towards that piece of freedom that you really desire, which is, if you haven't heard it before, there's a term for it that's out there. It's called compersion. And it's often used in the non-monogamy world. And basically, it's that you have this pure joy that your partner is happy.
Mm.
And if we can take that into every part of our life, not just with sex, but just the whole idea that I want my partner to be happy.
Yeah.
And what does that look like? It may not look like he's with me all the time, or we're not together at all. Who knows? but it's really getting down to that place within yourself that you want them to be happy.
Mm. Oof. And that can be such a trigger, especially for, and I say this with so much love because I have this too, for some of our anxious attachment friends. That like
Yeah.
it could be such a trigger because I think you hit so beautifully the quote unquote illusion, I'll say, of safety, of if they go away, like general safety, like right, like my finance, if there's that's a type of relationship like finance and family, but put that aside, like safety of, especially when we're anxiously attached, self, because we have so often
Yeah.
I see people, right, like putting all of their worth, all of their energy into this person. So wow, that is quite the trigger to work through, which is so beautiful. Like that's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. And you mentioned attachment styles. That's a huge one. Like really understand that's something I work with my clients with, is attachment styles. Because when you understand if you have an anxious attachment style, an avoidant attachment style, and you might be secure, right?
Mm,
And you take a step towards like actually opening up a partnership, sometimes all of a sudden that anxious or avoidant is going to come out.
totally, totally. It's like, okay, we're in a different field now. Like this is coming out.
Yeah, it's kind of because you're going to find out, you're going to start fleshing out any codependency you have, because codependency is, especially like when you've been together as long as we were, it becomes just a normal part of life almost, and you don't
Totally.
realize it. It just kind of like creeps in, because if you think about it, that's almost how society has taught us to function.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love what you're saying. And I have some amazing clients that are across the board. You know, some are in more traditional monogamous relationships. Some are in ethical non-monogamous. And we talk a lot, and this is such an important conversation for all to have that. We don't really talk about the happiness for our partner. It's like that's not
Yeah.
really a conversation. Like, so it's so cool. A lot of my ethical non-monogamous clients we have that conversation. And they're like, "Oh my God, I'm so happy. Like they're meeting this person or they're traveling." And I'm like, "Yay." But so often in monogamous relationships, we're like, us, or like it's something that's past, like we don't even really consciously think about it. So I'm like, that is such a beautiful takeaway for all. Like for all, whatever camp we fall into, if we, like that is such a beautiful takeaway.
Yeah, because it starts to begin to put us into more of an interdependent relationship rather
Yes.
than a codependent relationship. Because
Mm,
the codependency, we're always trying to manage how the other person's going to think and feel. But when we can just have that genuine space that we just want you to be happy, it starts to move that needle in a little bit different way.
totally. And I'm also sure, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it must help a little bit with like the anxiety of like, it takes some of the charge away a little bit, like of like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
I'm right. Like I'm genuinely concerned. Like I want them to be happy. I want them to live their best life. Like it takes away some of the, like I can at least see for myself, like some of the frantic panic energy.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing is, we're trying to work on these different layers that we have to get to that space where there's freedom.
Yes. Yes.
Because that's where
Wow.
everybody wants to be. They're stuck in a space, their own prison of their mind, or and that's what it is mostly their mind. And some, it might look physical, like, well, this is, the person that is helping me to pay the bills. And so then you're like, well, what's going to happen? What if they're not there to take care of me anymore? And so then there's that layer of fear to also work through.
Yeah.
And so again, it's just layers.
Layers. And what's so interesting is it's so cool because you're holding both the duality of clients and relationships, but ultimately what you're getting people to is, I fucking hate this word because I'm like, I think every coach is using this word, but go with me on this, like almost like self-sovereignty and empower. Like I hate that, but like you get what I'm saying. Like it's a very
It's an autonomy.
self-empowerment.
Yeah.
Yes, love that,
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. yeah, and I hear, yeah, the
Yeah, you get
buzzword.
what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm
But
like,
really
God damn it.
it is really realizing that each one of us are autonomous beings.
Yes.
And, one of the things with monogamy is a lot of times people feel like they own each other. We don't
Mm,
own each other.
yeah.
We are autonomous beings.
Yeah.
And along with that comes, I own your sexual life.
Yeah, that's is so true with being we don't even really realize the is this a word? Enmeshment? You know, like the code the deep codependency.
And I can tell you what, we were enmeshed in a huge way, because we worked together, we worked in the same house or the same business together, uh, did almost everything together. When we were in the church, we did everything together. So we were like the pure example of enmeshment. And so that was one of the things that as we started going through this, and recognizing how deep it was. I mean, it was always Dave.Gayle. I couldn't say anything just about Gayle. It was always about Dave and Gayle. And so for me, it was a discovery of my own autonomy. Like, what is life like if I don't look through the Dave colored glasses and I just look through the Gayle colored glasses? Things look differently. And we actually tackled that by doing some uncoupling and starting to spend more time away from each other, and even with our other lovers, things like that, so that we could see what it was like to not be around each other, you know?
Yeah. How do you help client, regardless what relationship they're in? Like, how do you help? Because everyone needs this. How do you help them get back to that place of empowerment in their own? I always say this, like in their own lane in a way. Like, how do you help them stay in their own lane? You know what I mean? But like be empowered in their own
Well,
truth.
yeah, yeah. And that's where, you have to start uncovering some stuff, like what's going on there. Um, but for me, a lot of it is really starting to understand yourself. How do you function? What is your attachment style? So that, what it, even your love languages, it could go into your erotic blueprint,
Yes.
starting to really know and understand yourself. And then also choosing for yourself, like, what pillars are you going to function on for your life? Because when you start figuring out, okay, I am going to tell my truth no matter what. I am going to be authentic. I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be curious. Whatever it is for you, then you have this compass, this guide that keeps you straight. And if you fudge on any of those, right, it's going to be off compass, right? You're going to feel it because you've already said, this is who I'm going to be. And that then when your partner is coming to you and you don't want to do something, and you're like committed to yourself to actually tell the truth, then you start telling the truth, which starts to reclaim that piece of you that uh, was hiding, always wanting to do whatever he did, or not wanting to rock the boat, or feelings. Oh my God, feelings. Somebody might start feeling something when I tell my truth.
Oof. What's coming up for me, like thinking about this, I'm thinking of like a lot of couples that have gone into the a little bit of, and it's no judgment, like autopilot, asleep mode. And
Yes.
and so I just feel ooh, the radical responsibility and the fear that sometimes brings of like, oh no, like I would have to confront a lot of shit. So like I would have to even it sounds like doing it monogamy. I love what you're doing because I keep bringing it back to all the different styles, but I love what you're doing because I think underneath all of this, it's consciousness for self. And I right?
It is.
Yeah. Yeah,
And,
that's so
and to me,
beautiful.
that's what relationships are,
Totally.
period.
Yes.
They are there to show you, to be a mirror for you, to really tell you about yourself. And if you think of it in that way, like that is a pure self-development tool. And it's any relationship. It could be a relationship with a boss, a relationship with your kid. That is what is happening here is we're seeing what's going on. And it's actually a mirror into what's going on in our own lives. And, monogamy is, like I said, it's an awesome path. If you're, and more so if you're using it consciously, because then you're really looking to go deep with that person and to really see yourself in a deep way. Now, if you're on autopilot, it's not going to happen unless something comes along and starts rocking the boat, which is going to happen at some point, just like it did with me, or maybe not. And that's just how they're going to exist for the rest of their lives.
Right.
And if they're okay with it, I guess they're okay with it.
Right. Right. Right.
But those aren't the ones that are coming to us, right? The ones that are coming to us is
Totally.
because something rocked the boat.
Yes. Yes. And what I love, this is a sidebar, but what I love about, in addition to your work, but like you living as a human, what I love is, because these are the type of people that I'm attracted to, especially doing this work, right? Like I like being surrounded by people that follow their desires, follow their dreams, like live their truth, speak their truth. And like, what a badass way that you stepped into that. Like you stepped in, like you're like, I didn't sign up. Like, holy shit! Like you stepped into that. Yeah, or it was
had no
given.
idea what I was up for.
You're like, oh, didn't know this was it.
Nope.
Yeah,
I was stepping into my hero's journey is what was happening.
yeah. Oh, can you talk to us about that? I fucking love that.
This is Joseph Campbell's work, and if you think of it, it's in all the movies, the books, all this stuff, where you've got the hero, the person, something upsets the apple cart, and he needs to go on this journey, start slaying the dragons and figuring it all out, and then finding that gold, and then he's able to bring it back to the community and then help the community with whatever that is. And so for me, that was my journey. Like I walked through all of this. I experienced all parts of it. Monogamy for several years. I experienced opening the relationship. We went polyamorous for a while, swinging, all these different aspects of it. I've actually walked it. And so that's why now I can bring it back and say, okay, here are the spaces to, enjoy these spaces and really consciously choose this path. These are the steps I would take. These are the steps I took. I went through it in a messy way. Now I can package it up and make it a lot easier for you.
Yes. Oh my God, that's so good. Can you talk about like, I don't even know what the question is here, but there's something I just want to keep highlighting. I guess what gave me so much joy was when I started doing this work. And again, like I said, I was surrounded by people that really were in their truth and they really were following their desires. Like, can you talk to us about, I'm interested in the bridge. Like, obviously we know how you got there, but like, what does that look like today? Like, what does listening to your desires look like today? Like, how has that, helped shift you, stretch you, grow you? Like, what does that?
Oh, it's beautiful because now I can speak from an empowered place because I know what my desires are. And every time I see somebody else, meet somebody new, I know that, oh, something is going to show me something about myself. It's going to show me what I want and what I don't want. Right.
Yes.
And so when I look at that and I take every opportunity and not take offense at it, right? That this is happening to me, but actually it is actually happening for me. And I know people don't like to hear that because it's not fun sometimes. But when you can kind of shift it and take it to that attitude, then you are way more easily going to express your desires, live in your desires, and life is going to just be completely different.
Wow. I love that. And again, like you said, like sometimes it's so fucking rude and sucks to be like in this inquisitive growth spot, but I have to highlight and I have to reframe what you said, that this isn't happening to me, this is happening for me. Like what a beautiful space to live your life. It fucking sucks sometimes, but like what a space to live your life from.
Yeah, because it takes the charge out of so many different things in life. Like even, the little things in life where what that don't go your way, when you can just take that attitude, oh, this is probably good. I was probably protected against something that could have been worse, right? So it may seem like that moment was hard because you didn't have what you wanted in the moment, but then you switch it around and you just kind of say, okay, that wasn't for me. Or especially relationships and dating. That's a big one. Like, because people sometimes want to cling on and find that security so bad that they're willing to hide themselves, not be themselves. We have all of these like pieces of us, these different archetypes within us, right? Like our wounded child, or it might be the warrior princess, or, all these different parts of us. And a lot of times we only want to put the good ones out there, right? So we'll do that. But then where does that get us? Because we're not really being us, right? We're not authentically being us. And so when we can authentically be us and really be truthful from the onset of what we desire, then we have this space when it doesn't happen, that you're like, okay, thank you. I'm glad that didn't happen. And now I can look back and I can say, oh, I can see why it could have been a disaster.
Yes.
I would have had to give up a big piece of me, that big piece of autonomy that I am, in order to do that relationship. So being rock solid in your desires and knowing what you want will also help protect you from going down those paths of, I got to do this for safety and security. I don't feel loved. I don't want to be alone. All of those different spaces.
Yeah. Well, this is a random sidebar. Maybe I just have to ask this because I'm so about talking my clients like nervous system regulation and holding yourself through things, right? Like holding yourself through the shit storms. And also we know like holding yourself through the good stuff. Like how can we have a healthy relationship to holding ourselves through it all? So this is like a really random ass question, but I have to ask you because I'm curious. How did you hold yourself like with love? And maybe I'm sure sometimes it wasn't perfect, but like through this huge, gorgeous, needed rupture, how the fuck did you hold yourself? Like with love and compassion and yeah.
Uh, oh yeah.
All of the above.
And that's a process. That is
Yeah.
a process, and everybody has to kind of find out what works for them. And, because there were times that I couldn't figure out why this was happening, or different things that were happening and shifting in my life that they're working for me. But man, there were times I had to cry. I had to allow myself to feel. And I think that's the big one, is just being okay with feeling a certain way and not feeling like everybody thinks and being perfect. But giving yourself space to cry with lots of self-care. Finding what it is, if it's getting out in nature, for me, it's the water.
Yeah.
I'm freaking out, stick me in water.
Yep. Same.
Yes. And so, yeah, there were different ways I had to learn to take care of myself to get to that space where I was okay and I was loving myself first before really having to deal with this. And being okay with not being okay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's a big, because I'm like, I literally talk about this, I think somehow in every episode or almost close to every episode, but it's beautiful. Like we talked about the sovereignty thing. Like there's a lot of hot words in the coaching industry: sovereignty, self-love, nervous system, these are all real things. But with self-love and self-care, so often I hear like, which there's nothing wrong with this. It's so helpful, but like the face sheet masks and I'm like the bubble baths, which I'm like, those are great. We love those. But what we're talking about is like deep soul, holding ourselves. Like that stuff is great. We love it. Keep it, add it. God bless. But like what we're talking about is like deeply holding ourselves, deeply seeing ourselves like we never have before.
Yeah. And that's where you have to be okay with being who you are, messy in the moment.
Totally.
Okay. And, for me, I learned some breathing techniques to regulate my nervous system, music, like, because I have some Ayurvedic training too. And so I always look at, where am I out of balance? And seeing that, then I can start shifting some of that with music, right? Which shifts my nervous system. Lots of meditation.
Yes.
Lots of
Yes.
meditation. And because and learning how to process emotions, and these are things that we have to work with our clients is how do we process emotions? And allowing them to somatically get into their bodies and find out where they're feeling these things. And that way they're able to actually feel, right? Because it's the not feeling. That's where we get stuck.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and that's where, we get sick and things don't go right and we can't talk because we're holding it in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you hit it so good. That's a huge, and I know for you too, that's a huge component of my work is we could talk about it, and I always give space for us to talk about it and to process from a brain point of view, which is fabulous. But the somatic body work is a huge, huge part of this, and I have to highlight this because I'm so glad you brought this up, is like allowing it to be messy. I think sometimes when we walk into this work, there's a desire for like, but yeah, I guess perfection, or like it's gonna look like this. I remember when I first started, I was like, I'm gonna do this program and I'm gonna put it on a bow and I'm gonna do it, and it's like, oh, honey, this is gonna shake your fucking world. You know what I mean? But I wanted it to be tidy and put it on a bow, and I got this course and this is integrated, like, and it's like I love the permission. And it's not from a space of be harmful or be, it's like it's permission that you're unraveling a lot of shit. Like sometimes it's going to be messy. And so thank you for that permission slip that this work is not always rainbows, butterflies, clean and clear and under control,
Yeah, it's not, let's have one conversation with you and it's all fixed. It's a journey. It's not a destination. And this is, if you really look back through your life, you may not have been totally consciously aware of it, but all of these things, there's always something that came into your life that disrupted, that caused something to change. And it might have been on a different level, but when you can start consciously seeing that it's happening, now you're moving into different levels.
How do you help, like, and it's so different for everyone, but like, how do you keep the intention of staying conscious?
For myself,
Yeah, for yourself. I'm just so curious. Like, yeah, like I'm like, what's your like what helps you be like, okay, I'm gonna be present, I'm gonna be conscious. Like, how do you stay in this zone of and of course we fall out, but like how do you stay in this zone?
that's where, awareness is a big part of it, right? So really getting into this space, like when I get into like the Autobot mode and I'm starting to function out of the Autobot mode, I take a moment and I pause and I kind of zoom out and I look to what's going on. And I bring myself back into awareness, because that's what we're really looking at, is awareness. Am I being aware of what I'm doing? Am I conscious of what's going on right now? Or am I just functioning out of the Autobot mode? And so for me, yeah, I take moments throughout my day, and that's where even like a short meditation, a 5-minute meditation, just dropping into that space and seeing what's going on inside you. Or like I said, that vision of just kind of zooming out and looking down on what's going on right now. So I'm curious, how about you? How do you do that?
Oh, I love that. Okay, thank you. I'm also like banking what you just said because I'm like, thank you. That's like helpful for me too. The last thing with the zooming out. Like, well, actually, I'm like, I need to take that because I'm also in a little bit of a place of burnout right now. So I need to take that. For me, it's the reminding myself of this work and staying present. And I'm very big with mindset, but like you said, body work. So I really try to focus on my breath. I really try to feel my body, my presence. Like I'm a big person when I notice like, ooh, I'm not really here, or like I'm spiraling out. Like like no one would know, but like I like tend to like will touch my shoulder or be like here. Like I am a big, like we talked about briefly, like an archetype person. So I'm like a big talking to like, hey baby, are you here? What's going on? So like I need like lots of grounding energy. That's like how I try to come back.
Yeah.
And sisterhood or siblinghood is a big one too. Cause I'm like, help,
Oh,
like I need the
yeah.
tools,
Yeah.
like, the deal, like coach, therapist, but
Oh, yeah.
yeah, like, which is why we do this work. But like, I think a big one for me too is like getting in my like siblinghood and like reaching out to people that I've done the work with. And I'm like, SOS, I'm raising the flags, help. You know what I mean? Like, that's a big one for me
Yeah.
too. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's good to have that network. And, as coaches, we have coaches
absolutely.
because, for me, anyways, it's important for me to keep on that track, to keep on that growing and so I don't fall into that funk and just get in that Autobot mode. So, yeah, I agree. Like having that network of people to reach out. And I mean, there's days I have that I'm losing it and all I need is a hug.
Yes, it's true. It's true. It's like could be a simple fix.
And I'll go to my roommate and I'll just be like, can I have a hug, please?
Yes, I love it. You're like, I'm asking for what I need here. It's
Yep.
so good. It's so good. I have to add this too because everyone knows I talk about this, but another one I really try to be mindful of is pleasure. And what I mean by that, like I'm trying even through burnout is how can I make this moment more pleasurable? And for me, sure, it's about pleasure, but for me, it's actually about consciousness. Because if that's on the top of my brain, I'm like, ooh, I notice where I'm checking out. I notice where I'm blacking out. I notice where I'm not here. So those types of questions help me get back and be like, here I am right here, right now, having this fabulous conversation with you. Like that helps me bring me back to like my five senses, which is a good one for us to play with. And I'm like, oh, I want to ask you 4 million more questions, but for time purposes, I'm like,
Well, we
God
can
damn
always
it.
do this. We can always do part two.
We have to because I'm like, wait, there's more. But I do want to, we'll obviously talk about where people could find you and all that good stuff. But before we wrap, at least today on this combo and move to more biz stuff, I'd love to pass the mic and ask, is there anything else that you're like, wait, Erica, I'd love to share this. There's some final thoughts. There's some gems that I just wanted to pass the mic and give you a last moment, like reflections, anything else you want to share.
Oh my goodness. I think we touched on so
We
many
did.
gems in this whole entire show. You know, um, and again, I'm just going to come back to, if you are considering, some kind of ethical non-monogamy or, opening the relationship of some kind of sort, or maybe you're single and you just want to find out, is this the kind of path that you want to take? Um, I would highly suggest a coach to just kind of help to navigate through. It's like having that third person sometimes, and especially if it's with a couple, can help to navigate and switch things because you see where everybody's looping. And, for me, I just want everybody to be on their optimal, joyous relationship path. That's the way I look
Yes.
at it. And, really, again, that's between the people involved.
Right. 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 That's so helpful. And I think especially for, like you said, for anyone, it's so important to be with a coach like you that explores what are your desires, what's your truth, what will get you into that, like, living your life for that place of your truth. That's so helpful. I'm obsessed with you and your work. Can you talk to everyone where they can find you, where they could be in your world? Like, how can we find you?
Yes, of course. Okay. So my business is actually Relationships Evolving. So relationshipsevolving.com, because relationships are always evolving, right?
Yes.
They are. We all evolve. And so if you think of it that way, relationshipsevolving.com. I'm on Facebook. I have Relationships Evolving with Gayle Lynn. And I do have a women's group that I just started too, where women are supporting women. on any kind of relationship topic. So that's starting to get going. So if you're a woman and you want to do that, jump on in. And I have a freebie also.
Please tell us.
It's on open relationships, and you can always put this in the show notes. But it's basically just freebie.relationshipsevolving.com. And so if you go there, I have like a PDF that kind of breaks down what an open relationship is and isn't, and when to approach it and how to approach it if you want to, and if it's really for you, because it's not there to fix a relationship. Okay. And then there's like 3 videos that also go on there. So depending on if you're that person that likes to read or you just want to listen, I break it down in 3 separate videos also. So, you can do that. You can also email me, Gayle@relationshipsevolving.com. And I'd be more than happy to do a discovery call. Those are free. We talk for just a few minutes and see if we can work together and if it's going to benefit everybody all the way around. And then we can go from there.
Yes. Thank you so much. If anything in this conversation resonated, I suggest everyone running to your free sources and to book a discovery call if it's in alignment, because you're fabulous. So seriously, thank you for spending some time with us today. This was awesome.
Oh, you're so welcome. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Me too. Part 2 will be coming soon. Yeah, we're going for that. Thank you so much. Seriously.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Seriously, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode and on this podcast journey. And if you loved what we talked about today and you know another human who could definitely benefit from what was discussed, I would so appreciate if you would go ahead and share this podcast with them. Don't forget, hit subscribe or follow so you never ever miss an episode. And the great news is you can always follow me, my work, my blog, my podcast on my website at www.wethelight.org. And hey, remember, life is so much brighter when we shine. I'll see you next time.